So this is my dad taking pictures of me running with my friends to school in the morning in the Adirondack Mountains back in the 50s. And the reason that I want to start with these kinds of family pictures is to really introduce my father to everybody, because he was the greatest teacher for me in all aspects of life, photography being number one.
We have a series
Yeah.
of images from your dad,
So
who was a surgeon,
he
not a
was
photographer.
But his passion was photography, and he loved taking pictures of my brothers and me and the people in the neighborhood. But also he would set me up like this. Like, he set me up here. He took me down to the little stream, and he kept saying, "Come on, Donna, jump into my arms. Be brave, jump." And so I would leap across into his arms. Every time he would step further back, until finally, when I leapt forward, he stepped too far back, and I fell in. And I got really wet, and I almost drowned, and I was afraid as he scooped me out, and he said, "Let this be a lesson to you, Donna. Don't you trust anybody, not even your father."
This is one of his patients, I hope,
Yeah,
not your
like
dad.
that happy guy trusted my dad, and dad saved his life. I grew up really being an enemy to the tobacco companies, because my dad this was one of his self-portraits of operating on someone who had cancer, on their lungs, and that's his hand there, and he has the camera up high, and Dad always did whatever he wanted to do, in your body, out of your body. He had a great sense of humor.
Did you think, oh, hey, I'm going to be a photographer like Dad?
No, never. I never thought I could be a photographer. I wanted to be an actress. And so my father, but I watched him and how much passion he had for taking pictures. It was everything to him. And the terrible tragedy was that, but look at how he put humor into his pictures. He was irrepressible, my old man.
Here's something, maybe not. So the family name actually used to be Pizzo Ferrato.
Yes.
Pizzo is lace.
Yes. And Ferrato is steel.
Lace and steel.
Exactly. So and my father and I are the same. We're both very soft and we're very hard. Whereas my mother, she's all hard. She's so tough. My mother really wore the pants in the house.
And she wanted you to be a good girl.
She wanted the good girl bit, yeah. The lady. She wanted me to be a lady. I couldn't. Look at that. He would get on a plane, traveling from some hunting trip out in.
And he happened to have a bag of fish.
Montana. And he would say to the prettiest stewardess, "I love your hat. Oh, you're gorgeous. Look at your beautiful eyes. Could you hold my fish, please? Let me take your picture." And they would anybody would do anything for my dad. He had the gift. Really, when I started to be a photographer, I wasn't thinking about any of the serious stuff and photojournalism. I wanted to be a newspaper photographer really badly. But mostly I just wanted to hang out with people because I really like people. And I had no ulterior motives except playing and having fun and getting to know people. But this picture is where I had my first orgasm, actually. Because, well, okay, I won't tell you about it, And this is all about, this was Belgian. And in Belgium, I started, playing with things, like Ulsman, And so here I would take a negative and put it into that says happiness is coming. So I was always doing self-portraits like this. We all do self-portraits. I've never stopped.
So by this time you'd gotten a Leica, and
Yeah.
you said that when you did that, your pictures changed.
Everything really changed because the Leica is so unobtrusive and so quiet, and it's a very personal, it's a sensual little camera. It's essential and it's sensual. So it stays very close to your side. That's why I started taping it up, because I didn't have any money, and I'd sleep in the parks there in Paris, and I didn't want anybody to steal my camera, so I made it look like it was broken. And that just kind of became like a brand, because of the red means passion, and the green means thinking carefully, but it's red for stop, green for go. And I need that. I need to have little indicators that tell me when to stop, because if I don't get them, I get too crazy. These are some of the portraits I did of these old Belgian men that I found in a cafe in Brussels back in the 70s. And, everybody always said you have to be famous, you have to be fashion, you have to do this or that. But that was all bullshit to me. I really didn't give a shit about being famous. I wanted to know who were these kinds of people that attracted my eye. So I would go and live with them in their houses, and they would tell me stories, and they would take me all around Belgium and introduce me to one another. And their stories were incredible, really. And I kept in touch with this man, with Ramon, for many years. Mistakes, little Minox. Mistakes are cool. Like Stanley was saying last night, it's all about the mistakes. And that's what makes film so radical and great, And I'm very thankful for everything, to have been able to really shoot to my heart's content through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, before digital. And I used to always tell those Kodak guys, I'm never going to go digital. Forget about it, it's the devil, And but of course I do some work with digital now, but film, you can't come up with anything so unique with digital unless probably you can. They can do anything, but it's not organic. It's not pure like this. It's not pure. The thing about film is that it's pure. There's Philip. Yay, Philip Jones Griffiths. He's the next big man in my life, the really big man. I had a husband in between and lovers and all that, but Philip was the really big man who turned my life around. He's the father of Fanny. He's an incredible man in all of our lives. He really understood my dad a lot when Dad was going through the manic depression, and he always believed in him. Here he is photographing Fanny's birth, and I was in labor for like 2 days, almost 48 hours, so it was pretty intensive. We were at home having a party, but it was so natural. We were always photographing each other every step of the way. And my dad was in the big depression, so he wasn't there. My mom, I didn't even tell my parents that I was having a baby, really. They really didn't get it. But here's Fanny being born, which is pretty amazing, right? Fanny, let's hear you wail. So the thing is with the shelters, living in the shelters and stuff, like actually the domestic violence work probably would have never happened as intensely. I would have never been so embedded if it hadn't been for Philip, who kept telling me, believe in yourself, go on, Donna, go do it. Because at the time, no magazine would publish it. Nobody was interested. Everybody was afraid of this work. And it was only Philip who said, look at Donna, I'm like the president of Magnum, and I've never seen anything like this here. So fuck all these editors. They don't know what's good anyway. Just go out and keep taking those pictures. I believe in you. And if I didn't have somebody like Philip believing in me, I don't think I would have had that kind of guts to keep at it. He was very intense. And, it's just because we're a family doesn't mean you only do those portraits of each other when you're looking at each other and it's a nice moment. It's important to photograph every part of a life. And I don't just do it just with people who are my so-called subjects. I'm like that with everybody in my life. Now we should stop here just for a second, because this will take you really into the psychology of the mindset of two different war photographers, Philip Jones Griffiths and Don McCullen. Don McCullen loved Philip with his whole heart. Philip was his mate from when they were together in Fleet Street photographers running around in the early days in the 70s, in the 60s even. And, but Philip was always a lot more intellectual, and he was really into composing and all the techniques and, the form, everything, the equipment. Don was very intuitive, very emotional, and he looked up to Philip. So as Philip was dying the last few weeks, he came there every single day to see Philip, every single day. And Philip was suffering so much. He was oozing pus from every part of his body, especially his legs. And here he is wrapped up in his Vietnam blanket. Now, I didn't understand what was going on with Don McCullen, though, because so often he would go out into the backyard, and it wasn't to smoke. He would go out there and he would stand for a little while, and then he would go back into the house. At one point I said to Don, why do you always go back in the backyard? What's going on out there? And he goes, well, I really get very emotional when I see Philip like this, and I have to cry, and I don't know what to do with my emotions. And I said, well, I don't understand this, Don. And he said, well, and also Philip's always trying to touch me and hold my hand, and I get embarrassed because I don't hold men's hands. I never even hold my son's hands. I'm not a pufta. And I said, well, Don, if Philip's trying to hold your hand, that's a beautiful thing. Do that, what are you afraid of? So this was I'd say it was about 24 hours before Philip's death. And Don was in there, and I was taking pictures of them, and I said, okay, I want to take a portrait of you two old war horses. So come on, Don, go and stand behind Philip. And so he did, but he stand very stiffly. And I said, no, Don, I want you to feel Philip in your arms. I want you to hold him. Come on, do it. And so then he did, and you can see his shoulders. You can see how tense he is. But he's holding him. And, a lot of you in here, you're so pure, you guys would never do anything like this. You would never say to Don McCullen, do that, go touch this man, hold him in your arms. How many of you, just say out loud, how many of you would tell Don McCullen to go do something like that? Huh? Because this is what we have to do more of. We have to follow our own hearts, because so many people need permission to be human. So many people don't understand. That's your last moment you're going to have with someone that you love so much. Forget about all this stuff, this social conditioning that we're raised to think is what makes us higher than animals. Forget about all the bourgeois stuff. Forget about all the gender stuff. Be human with each other and show love. And then you wouldn't believe all the criticism I got by photographers who came into the house. Even some Magnum photographers, when they saw that I'd been photographing this whole time, they were so upset. How can you photograph this? He's dying. How can you do these pictures? And look he photographed Fanny coming out between my legs. Yeah. That's what it's all about. We photograph each other at the most beautiful times in our lives. And for me, death is a very beautiful time. I am not afraid of death at all. And I've had the most powerful, loving, unforgettable experiences of my life, being with both Philip and my dad as they were dying. It's an honor to be with someone you love when they're dying.
This is work that you're doing 70s?
This was actually the early 80s.
Early 80s.
So here, this is the swinger couple now. They're doing cocaine with the high school kids, and everything's kind of going crazy there. That's Lisa, and that's her daughter right there. This was sometime after that party, and I had gotten a call from Lisa, and she was telling me that she was becoming very afraid of her husband, Garth, and she said I think he's trying to set me up or kill me. So I said, oh, okay, I'll come back and see you. And I had Fanny with me at the time. She was just 4 months old. She's in a basket on the table over there. This next picture, number 1, is the first picture I took that night when I heard the sound of Lisa screaming. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. Fanny was sleeping next to me, and the Leica was on the table. And I heard her screaming, so I put Fanny back in her little basket because I knew that Garth had a gun. And so I went running down with the Leica, which is more powerful than a gun any day. And so I went in there and started taking pictures.
Does he know that you're there?
He doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
he's a man. This is the master bathroom. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just some little woman photographer. I'm nothing.
Yeah.
I'm a flea. So he's doing whatever he wants to do to her, but that's a picture he took. That's the first picture he took. And after he went to hit her again, and I was thinking, I got to get this picture or no one's going to believe it. But then I went and I grabbed his arm and said, what are you doing? You're going to hurt her. Leave her alone. And he just threw me off and he said, look, she's my wife. And I have to teach her that she can't lie to me. So stay out of it because I know my own strength. And so I said, okay, I don't know really what goes on behind closed doors, so I just continued to photograph everything.
Wow. And I saw this series of photographs. I thought to myself, at some point, don't you have to put down the camera and say, hey, stop it? Well, you did.
Yeah, but that was the first picture. I mean, it's really like God is a woman, because the goddess up there, she really wanted me to get these pictures, and that was like the very first picture. She really wanted me to take these pictures. This was set up for me by some kind of like other thing, right? Some wolf up there. So from that point on, though, because like you said, I did hide the film. I mean, I didn't hide the film. I just thought, these people are crazy. I don't like them. I grabbed little Fanny and ran back to Manhattan and said, I'm not going to see these people anymore. I don't really like these kinds of people who do these things. And I didn't look at the film until I went back to visit her. I called up the house. She was in the hospital. He said that he had her committed, Lisa. So I went and saw her, and she had a fresh black eye. And I said to her, how did you get that black eye? And she said, I must have been drunk the other night, fallen down and hit my head on the coffee table. That's when the light bulb went on in my head. And that's when I went home then and developed that roll of film.
And this photo, that young man's name is Diamond?
Yep. Diamond is quite an amazing young man. And even at that moment, I was so shocked when I heard him saying to his dad, I hate you for hitting my mom, and I hope you never come back to this house. I mean, even the police were so shocked. And at that point, I'd been riding with the cops for about a month straight, every night, for about 12 hours every night.
And where is this?
This is in the morning in Minneapolis. But this is to show you how the way I work with photographs is I'm always trying to figure out how to take it beyond the magazine. A photographer, if they really believe in what they're doing, then they have to open their mouths and talk about it and then find out ways to get their photographs used in a popular form, so that the photographs become a whole nother language for society. And that was my issue. I mean, I believe in photography as art, and I believe in photography as communication, and I believe it's a great social tool for us being able to understand each other better.
This is Diamond.
That's Diamond that I used in a series of ads for the Giuliani administration back in the early 90s. Because we needed to start bringing attention to people that there were shelters and that women could get help, and they had to call the shelters. And then this is little Salome, whose mother went with me to the Ku Klux Klan land. We did that sort of together. And this is all part of the Unbeatable campaign. This is our motto, that jellyfish are transparent, and transparency is a key to a safe life free from abuse. That comes from Salome.
Do you want to tell people what unbeatable is?
An unbeatable is someone who gets out of a bad relationship sooner than later, before their pride is broken down, before they don't even know how to defend themselves, they don't know how to defend their children. Before that happens, they get out of that relationship and they don't ever look back. And this is Johnny and a bird and on Block Island. And this, for me, is really an important picture that I wanted to share with you. I mean, it's important because it shows the sense of trust and harmony between man and animal. And we have so much to learn from each other, but we have to, really like give a little bit, take a little bit. We have to be open with each other. And I've just always really liked that. And I wanted to leave you with a sense of hopefulness, goodness.